Okay, so I entered mine in. I hope you were able to do the same, and I am looking at Jill's data right now, and so I toggled down on my results, and Jill's min value is 64, her Q1 is 73, median 78, so I'm just going to enter that stuff here. Kind of running out of room, or it's hard to squeeze that all in, but so her Q1 was 73, her median was 78, her Q3 was 81, and then her max was 100. It's listed up there. I toggle down, max is 100. I'm going to move over and do the same thing for Bill's, and so his min was 43, his Q1 was 75.5, his median was 80, and then his max 96. I skipped his Q3, sorry, Q3 86.5. Those ended up being in the middle, but again, our calculator takes care of that for me. I just, when I did this on here, I did them both at the same time, and then I highlighted the one I was interested in and made sure it moved over. You could just re-enter in a different spreadsheet or whatever and just jot down. And then our question was on here, who scored better with respect to their class, and that's what percentiles are kind of all about, because in Bill's class, the median is at the 50% mark. 50% of the class got an 80 or higher, I would say. That's how I interpret that. And in Jill's class, 50% got a 78 or higher. And so who scored better with respect to their class? Well, I would say Jill did, because her score was above the middle score. But that's with respect to her class. They both scored the same, but because her score was closer to Q3, closer to the upper 25% than Bill's was, we say Jill scored better. She was closer to the 25th percentile or upper 25th percentile. So I would say Jill scored better. And so we're going to use the 5-number summary to create a box and whisker plot. And so we'll create a box and whisker plot for both of them. I'll just stack one on top of the other. And so I've got a number line down here. I'm just going to go ahead and number my number line. I know my max is 100 and my min is 43, so 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. That's not going to work. But I think I'll do 45 here, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an extra line to go 40 on the bottom and an extra line to go 100 up on the top. There, then I have it numbered by 5 and it all fits on pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to do them in 2 different colors. I should have done that from the beginning. I'll do Jill's in purple, I'll do Bill's in red, and you can see how it puts together. It's a real simple graph to make. So the lowest score is 64, so I go to about 64. I'm going to move up high to put Jill's up here, and I put a dot. Then Q1 is 73, so I approximate Q1. I go there, put a line. The median is 78, so I approximate 78. I do another line. The Q3 is 81. I approximate 81. I do another line. And then lastly, the max is 100, so I put a dot on the max. And then this is how I create my graph. I connect the 3 lines and make the box, and then I extend the box to the end points to make the whiskers. So this is my box and whisker for Jill's score, or Jill's class. And then I'll do the same thing for, was it Bill? Yeah, Bill's class. Okay, so do the same thing for Bill. This one I'll do in red. So his lowest score was 43, so we'll put a dot, approximate 43. And then Q1 was 75.5, so that's real close to 75. I'll put that there. And median is 80, so middle line is at 80, and 86.5, so I approximate about 86.5-ish. And the highest score in that class was 96, so I put my last dot at 96. So it's 2 dots at the ends and 3 lines in the middle, and then I just connect the lines to make the box and connect the whiskers. And this is Bill's class. Now, I had mentioned earlier about outliers, and so outliers happen when you have a score that's way out of the normal. And so if you see a real long whisker, sometimes we can think that potentially there is an outlier on the end. And so I would need to check to see if I have an outlier at that spot. If we get into outliers, let me check on the next page. Constructed by, okay, it doesn't go into outliers on the next page, but I'm going to go into the outlier here, okay? I'm going to go in because I think this could be an outlier for Bill, and so this is what I do. I take 1.5 times the IQR, and the IQR is the interquartile range, and the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. And so I take, for Bill, 86.5 minus 75.5, and I'm just going to plug that in my calculator and get a value. 86.5 minus 75.5, get a value of 11, and so I'm going to do 1, this equals 11, I do 1.5 times 11, and 1.5 times 11 is 0.5 times 11, 16.5, so this is my magic number that I'm going to work with. So what I have to do is I have to take Q3 and I add that number, 86.5 plus 16.5, and get a value. So 86.5 plus 16.5, I ended up with 103. And so if anybody got higher than 103, we would call that an outlier. But in Bill's class, nobody got above 96. Well, I didn't think the high end had an outlier anyways because that was a real short whisker. Now I'm going to do the same thing but on the other end, but now I have to subtract it from the low end. So I take the Q1 and I'm going to do 75.5 minus that number 16.5. That's a 75. So again, I plug it in my calculator, 75.5 minus 16.5. And there's an outlier if there's a score below 59. And so that would equal 59. And yes, you know what? If I look back up at the data, there is this one score below 59, so that's considered an outlier. Now, usually when we have an outlier, I will write that on as a starred data, but the other thing that I do then is I make my low point 65. So I would make my whisker end at 65, and I would not include anything in between there. So I have the luxury of having this white out here. You can just scribble it out or just kind of make note of it or whatever. Erase it if you used your erasable pen, but I would get rid of that piece. And so then I have more reasonable outliers going on there, or sorry, more reasonable whisker length going on there. So that's how we check for an outlier. It is, again, it is Q3 minus 1.5 times the IQR, I'm sorry, plus 1.5, that's the upper end outlier, or upper end cutoff, I should say. And then we do Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, and that is the lower end cutoff. And so I decide if I have an outlier that way. So these are kind of your outlier notes that you want to maybe add into your stuff. Make sure you have that written down. So our last page in these notes is just asking us to make a box and whisker, so we'll go through one more together, and I'm going to go ahead and go through the whole process from start to finish with you. We have Mary's telephone switchboard operator. She has a number of wrong number phone calls that she received in 20 days, so I have 20 pieces of data. So I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator instead of using it says order the data first. I don't need to, again, because I'm using my calculator, so I'm going to go to the spreadsheet. Again, hit home, go to the spreadsheet, select enter, and then I'll enter my data. And that's 3, 4, 13, 31. You don't need me to say them out loud, I would imagine. I usually try to make sure that I did enter everything right, so I just kind of go back and double check. 14, 18, 21, 23, 8. Sometimes I'll enter stuff wrong, I'll miss a number or skip something, and then it messes my whole thing up. So it looks like I got everything. That's fine. I gotta go up to the top and highlight. Remember, the steps are menu. I hit 4 for statistics. I want stat calculations. I want the one variable stat calculations. Again, I go through that process of entering. It's just telling me I'm taking from line A. I'm going to put the results in line B. Okay, it gives me all of my information, and then I'll toggle down to get the part that I'm interested in. And now I'm interested in the min, Q1, the median, Q3, and the max. So I have a min that goes from 3 to 35. So I'm going to start this maybe at, let's see, I bet I could do pretty easily. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Yeah, I can do that. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I have more to fill in, and I don't need all those dots. It doesn't really matter that much, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So again, the min is 3. I'm going to make that dot at 3. So 3. And then my Q1 is 10.5, so I go to about 10.5 and make a line. And my median is 16.5, so I go to 16.5-ish, make a line. Go back and find my Q3 is 22. Q3 is 22, so I go there and make a line. And then my max is 35, so I go all the way out to 35 and make a dot. Now, this particular graph, I am not going to connect my whiskers just yet, because this 35 is far out. It doesn't seem like it's too far out, but it might be far enough out that it could be an outlier, and so I just want to check that. So I find my IQR, and remember my IQR is Q3 minus Q1, so it's 22. That's 22 minus 10.5, which gives me, take my other calculator to do that, 22 minus 10.5 gives me 11.5. And then I do 1.5 times 11.5 to give my upper and lower bound. So I'll plug that in here and multiply that by 1.5. And I got 17.25. And so, oops, 25. So remember, it is 22, the Q3 plus 17.25, and then 10.5, the lower one, minus 10.5. And then I will get my see if any range falls out of there. So 22 plus 17.5, that gives me, oops, I did 2. See what I mean? Sometimes 17.5. So the upper end is 39.5. My upper data is 35, so that was of no concern to me. I thought it might be, so I can just go ahead and check. Now, if there was a data of 40 up here, then that would be out of this range. It would be higher than 39.5, and so where 40 was, I'd have to put a star on the graph for that. But the one thing I want to remember is to, when I'm done, make sure that I put a title on my graph. I kind of was not talking about that as much as I should, but this is, I'm looking at the number of wrong, this is the number of wrong number telephone calls, and it's over 20 days. I didn't plan that well. This is sort of sloppy, sorry. It's hideous, don't look at it, but title it. And so this is calls, would be what I'm numbering by down on the bottom. So every time we make a graph, remember we need to put a title and stuff. So anyways, why don't you again finish 3.2b, just that y variable, see if you can answer that question, and then I'll have you do 3.4, make a box and whisker plot, and then answer the question. You can do problem number 1. If you want to try another one, go ahead and do that. But then up next would be the review, so I'll have you work on the review on Friday, and then I'll post the review answers so we can go over any questions and you can take a look at it if you need it on Friday. So I will see you soon. Again, sorry for not being here today. If you have any questions, just let me know. Hold off and we can figure that out or work on it when we meet again on Monday. All right, take care.